well, here's how I knew it was going to go bad. I got up and I said, I think it's important before we start this that I let everyone know that I'm Native American. Otherwise, this is going to be real racist real fast. And then I go, and they were like, okay, wait, like, hang on. They didn't know whether to laugh or not. And then I go, I'm an enrolled member of the Chickasaw Nation. And then they clapped. And I was like, oh, no. I was like, they clapped just because I'm Native. Like that. I was like, this crowd's going to hate me. Because
Welcome to another episode of the What's So Funny About podcast, brought to you by the Liberation Comedy Project, liberationcomedy.org. I'm your host, Pedro Silva. And on the podcast, we love to say that we talk to funny people about serious subjects. And today we have a funny one for you. We're talking to Blake Pickens, actor, producer, comedian, and overall funny guy. Enjoy. I'll let Blake introduce himself a little bit more, but Blake identifies as Indigenous. We're going to be talking about Thanksgiving, so I'm imagining hilarity will ensue. So what's up, Blake? Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, dude. I'm happy to be here. It's weird to say identifies as, like, because I just am. Like, I don't know that, like, I identify as it. I'm just, that's a
liberal thing, man.
Oh, is that what? Okay.
Because I say identify as black, and you can look at me and just be like, "Yeah, he's
like,
black."
Hang on a second. Yeah. Well, with that,
even though I did see a
not.
black person that said he identified as some completely different thing, and I was like, "Oh, kid, dokie."
Yeah, I think if you're like, everybody got to do whatever makes you happy, but like, yeah, that's a weird way to like. Because when I tell people like, oh yeah, like I am. When I introduce myself, it's like I'm Blake Pickens. I'm an enrolled member of the Chickasaw Nation of Oklahoma. There's no like identifying in that. It's just like that's what I am.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm glad you called that out. And so let me ask you this, because like when I think about comedy, I know especially if you come, we talked about this before, when you come from a background that is. There's a lot of terms we use. I'm just using them just for sake of conversation. But let's say marginalized, community.
Yeah. Oh, we were marginalized for sure.
Yeah. So like, to me, being able to laugh at some of this stuff that's painful is like a balm. You know what I mean? It's like it's part of survival. And at the same time, sometimes we might laugh about things that people who don't come from those types of backgrounds think like, how can you laugh at something like that?
Yeah.
And I know like when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, it was just like one hilarious thing after the other of things that sounded like abuse and
and everybody around us was like, are they okay?
You're like, what? Why are you laughing at that?
Well, like, man, it's like if you're in a tragedy, you don't know you're in a tragedy. Like you aren't experiencing life like that every day. Because if you did, like, you'd just like, you'd be like, I'm done. I don't want to be in this anymore. Like that's like growing up poor, like you still laugh about stuff. You're not just like, oh, I'm still poor all the time. Like you don't think that. Like it's people outside who look at you and go like, oh, how tragic for them. And then they move on and live their life. They don't do anything about it. They just go, oh, it must be so hard.
Yeah, exactly. So like, were you like the funny person in your family and then comedy evolved out of that? Or was it just something you stumbled onto? How'd you end up in comedy?
Literally everybody in my family was funny. Like my mom, my dad, my brother, my grandma, my grandpa, like aunts, uncles, they're all funnier than me. Like I just like was the one who pursued it like professionally, but they're all they're so funny. And like, cause like you have to be like, whenever you're dealing with stuff like that, like you either laugh or you cry about it. And like my family always chose to laugh about it. But like it was, for me, I found it because everyone around me was funny. I wanted to be like that. I wanted to also like, I noticed like, oh, if you say this thing this way or do this thing, like if you fall down right, if you do these things, like people will laugh and like it makes them happy and they have a good time. And so like my grandma was, the show Hoarders. She wasn't on Hoarders, but like she could have been. She's a top candidate. Like if she met you one time in her life and was never going to see you again, doesn't matter. If she saw something at the thrift store that was like your size, she would just buy it. and she had put it in a room in her house in case she met you again, so she could give you that piece of clothing.
Wow.
And so like we had like a whole room just full of costumes. So like me, my brother, and my cousin, we watched this show called we watched Mad TV, and then we had watched this show called All That, which is like a kids sketch
Oh yeah, I
show.
remember that, the kids show, like
Yeah.
kids version of sketch comedy.
And so we were like, oh, we should do that. That's fun. And so we would use those costumes because we had all these clothes and like put on
Mm,
stuff that we were seeing in the community. And that's where my sense of humor developed really, because it developed really dark. Because like
right.
we would see DHS come in and take our like cousins away from our aunts and uncles, like all that sort of stuff. But when these DHS workers came in, they would like, they didn't understand the community. They didn't understand what was going on. And so
Mm,
like we thought it was funny that like they were like fancy and we were poor. So like my grandma had this like fake fur coat. And
mm.
so we put on this whole sketch of like me being the DHS worker, like coming in and like taking my cousin who was playing the baby away from
Oh
my
geez.
brother. And like so like and like we would make that funny because like we were talking about like the like them not understanding the culture, but like
Hmm.
thinking they're doing the right thing. Even
Right.
like and so like it just like very early on like developed in a kind of a dark way.
Yeah, nah, I get that. It's funny because I was like probably the least likely in my family to be doing comedy as well. And because
Yeah.
my family was also hilarious, but it was always so cutting. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
they
yeah.
pick out like the hardest thing about you. And even a part of my family that's on the more like Hispanic side, like even like my cousin, we had a cousin named I had a cousin named Flacco. His name's not Flacco, but we call him Flacco, was just skinny.
Hmm.
And then we had his brother was Gordo, right? And it's
Oh,
like, so we
Gordo.
just
Yep.
basically call them fat and skinny. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And it's
Yep.
like to other people, they hear that outside and it's like, what? They just call them fat and skinny, you know?
Uh-huh.
And then like on the black side of my family was also like just like this like cutting thing. So I like for a long time, I kind of it would go through my mind, but I would be like, no, I'm not gonna say it because that like could hurt somebody, and I know how it goes. And I told you about my mom's whoop-de-doo
Oh,
honor
dude,
roll
that was
thing.
funny.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I'm not ready to say up here yet, but but uh but but at some point I started I knew that I knew what to do. I just didn't was like holding back from doing it. But then I started realizing like in some instances I needed it as an outlet. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and then it's and also like a bridging tool, which I work primarily in the bridging space now. And so it's like, okay, how can we find what's funny here to bring people together across differences and to humanize things that they might not be able to feel like they can relate to, but to bring it in a way that does uh, humanize people from different backgrounds and help them see like that might not be your
Yeah.
reality, but it's not less of a way of being human with other people. So that's kind of like why I started kind of pulling it out more, and I started doing it as a pastor because when I
Hmm.
first started preaching, I was very like here's the depressing things that you should feel crappy about, so you know make the world better. And I had a
Yeah.
dude say to me like, if you're gonna be this depressing, you should at least tell a couple jokes. And
Yeah.
that's how I kind of started doing more comedy, which
Yeah.
I want us to get into Thanksgiving and just like
We'll get
laugh about
there.
it. But
Yeah.
but I also speaking of preachers, and I told you I was looking forward to us talking because Oklahoma had made me sad this week or the past
Oh
couple weeks. Not
no.
just Oklahoma, but I don't know if I mentioned my friend Carlton Pearson. He's like a bishop
Yeah.
in Oklahoma, and he's not doing well physically right
Yeah.
now. And a lot of Christians were kind of like coming out against him negatively because he's like a very inclusive person, and he used to be
Oh,
more
that's weird that
conservative.
like it's weird that they like don't like inclusivity, which is like
Right,
I mean, if you read the Bible, like you're
right,
kind of just supposed to love everybody, but
right,
some people
right.
read it and they're like, no, there's a lot of hate in there. I like hating.
Yeah, yeah. Hate is where it's at.
Yeah, if you got
Yeah,
hate in your heart, let it out.
yeah. I know. And to them, like I think heaven in their mind is like so small. They're like, we got to get rid of some people, so they can make room,
Yeah.
make
Oh, we
room for
need some
them.
room for yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so they like so a lot of people were turning on him and it was making me angry. But then I started thinking about how can I turn it into a comedy. So like most of my uh comedy is like something that pissed me off and then I try to like make it funny to myself.
Yeah.
Like I just take it to the most ridiculous level. So I've been
Yep.
working on like a church related comedy skit set,
Okay.
but it's like calling out the hate, but then making it like kind of like it's love, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is
but like
yeah.
just calling it, this is what they were doing, you know what I mean? And it's actually making me look crazy because I keep working on it while I'm in the car by myself. And I was at a light and I was like this, like, and then I looked and somebody was looking at me and I was like, oh shoot.
You're like, hey, I would don't look at me.
But like, I guess to wrap it into Thanksgiving, like I feel like a lot of the hate, like self hate, because there's a lot of he's black, and a lot of people that are
Yeah.
coming out of him are black, and but they adapted this like version of Christianity that has kind of like an embedded like white you know I don't throw this word out loud, but like white supremacy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
then black people who believe this particular thread then get angry and harmful to other black people, you know,
Oh yeah.
because of the narrative. And I'm sure that happens in your community as well.
Yep.
And when I look at like the historical arc, this might not sound like funniness to other people, but you think about like when they tell stories like Thanksgiving, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
they're like making like, oh man, everybody was so happy.
Oh, there was such a good time, man. It was just family eating together. Those poor savages got a good meal.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, even though I don't have anything against giving thanks at all, I
No,
just think of
you
this
should. Yeah.
right at this time of year, I'm always like, I'm always like, man, I wonder what indigenous people are thinking right now about this. And, you know,
Yeah, well, what we're thinking is, oh man, we hope nobody sees us celebrating this because we like to eat too and hang out with family. Like,
right, right,
and
right,
it's a day off. Like,
right,
we're not like drawing hand turkeys and being like, oh, thank God we had the pilgrims. Otherwise,
right,
where would we be? But
right,
like,
right,
I mean, we're like quietly like having our day too.
right.
We're
Yeah.
on Instagram. We're like, fuck this holiday, which I
Because
think
I
is
remember when I
fair.
was a kid, they had me freaking making the little pilgrim hat, and I'm like, I don't think I should be wearing this.
Yeah, I don't think we should have buckles on our hat. That don't make no sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
I know.
why is your hat so big that you got to buckle it to your head? Like, why get a hat that fits, dude? Like,
I know.
everybody back then was a seamstress, man. Just make it better.
Yeah, I know. I think about all of those things that, like, in history, that I mean, we're having this big challenge with history right now where people don't want to hear multiple
Yo,
perspectives on history. They want it to be like
yeah,
one uniform one that makes everybody feel good. And it's like, what is up with that? And I think about that a lot, especially in the context of comedy, because I think
yeah.
it's almost dangerous to not be able to tell the harmful stories. What do you think
Well,
about it?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like if you look back at history and like you're not uncomfortable with the way that you did something, you're not growing, man.
Right.
You're blind to the fact that like everybody individually can grow, but also as a collective society, we can grow. And if you look back and say, no, it was perfect, these were the good old days, that's how it should be. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
just like, I mean, you like, it's just, it's not a like intelligent way to be. Like, you're not actually considering like that you are fallible and society's like, I don't, it's dangerous because like, you can't like we should always be moving forward and moving this needle like in the right direction of like good and positivity. But there's a big contingent of people who just say like, no, 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 this is the way it was. This is what I like. This is what I think that's what it is. It's like they're comfortable with that because they had a certain lifestyle during that time. And so
Right.
they want that again. But the lifestyle that they had at that time was at the expense of other people. But
Right.
to say that, like, and also I understand because like directly, they didn't necessarily do anything
Mm-hmm.
themselves. It was
Right.
like society as a collective and like government as a collective. So they have some like distance from that to be like, well, it wasn't me. I didn't do that. Like, why do I need to like now change these things because I didn't do anything personally? And it's like,
Right.
right. But like, that's we like like, but can you not see that other people are suffering? Can you not
Right.
like, where is like your empathy in that? Like it,
Right.
and like, I also get it because like I get a lot of like poor white people in my family and like they lived just as shitty as I lived growing up.
Right. Right.
And like, I had the extra layer of like native discrimination, but it doesn't change the fact that they also like had a shit go at it. Like
Yeah.
and so like I get like I like it's hard. I have a lot of empathy for like everybody. And so like even
Yeah.
when someone's like mean and hateful, I'm still like, well, I understand why you're like that. And like, you
Yeah.
know. I still love you and hope that like you can like we can be friends and you can get over that, even if they're like terrible. I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
like there's exceptions to that
layers.
rule, but like yeah, but like I just I don't know. I try and see the
Nah,
good in everybody.
and with people with complex backgrounds like ours, where we have like mixed heritages as
Yeah,
well, it makes it even more complicated. Because like I have like step family that's like straight, they lived in the trailer parks. You know what I mean? They were poor.
yeah, yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? And they so just like all of that. So I see that as well on an individual basis, and I also understand like some people's tendency to think like, well, if we just make things as soft as possible and no one feels bad, then blah blah
Yeah.
blah. But one, comedy will suck if everybody is
Comedy
like
would be
feeling
so bad, dude. If you don't like that's like you're meant to push that line and see where it's
right,
at and cross it and then
right,
come back. And like that's
right,
like part of it is just like part of it is calling out what's happening in the world, but you do it in a way that like makes it a little more palatable. Like that's how
right,
like the jester would deliver bad news to the king. Like that, it goes
right.
back that far. Like to where
Yeah,
you have like the people of comedy, like that gives us a lot of like it makes us sound like we're doing a lot of good work. I mean, we're also just
right,
telling jokes sometimes,
right, right.
but like
Yeah,
but it is like the role of the comedian is like to comment on what's going on and to say it in
yeah,
like a way that maybe you haven't thought about it before.
yeah. And I imagine like if we don't like keep that pushing that line and inviting people to like get curious and get uncomfortable and then bring them back into comfort with that laughing and all
Yeah.
that stuff, like the history is going to be looking real crazy, and then people are going to be telling stories like, okay, so then we traveled on this trip to America, and we met these nice people and they were all timeshare salesmen, and they gave us this land and they were like, you want a portion of,
Yeah.
and then we had some other immigrants that came over and they were like, hey, we want to do a lot of work,
We just
we
want
want
to
to build
work and
some
we want to do it for
skills.
free. We want to develop some skills.
Yeah, we want to be interns. There were all these black interns that
All
came
these
in.
unpaid black interns. You know what?
Yeah,
I like that rebrand. That's
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
That's a
And they're
good
like,
way. Yeah.
oh wow, that was cool. I want to be an intern. Like I like that's what I'm like. I'm like, yo, come on, we
I
can't do this.
I like that your community was was interns and mine were timeshare salesmen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, I don't know, man. But so do you think there's anything off limits with comedy? That's one of the questions I like to ask folks. Because sometimes it's like obviously there's that edge, but is
No,
there anything you
I,
think is off limits?
I don't think anything's off limits because I think everybody is like allowed to like be made fun of and like
Mm,
to laugh with you and to laugh at you. And like I don't think like I know there's a lot of like you shouldn't punch down, but like I think there's a difference between like a mean-spirited joke and like joking about someone who's in like a different like position than you. It's like you can still like I think nothing is off limits in that way. I think just don't be a dick, don't be mean-spirited. Like
right,
you can tell when it's like a like harmful thing that you're trying to do, that you're trying to hurt someone versus like trying to say, hey, I understand your experience, this here's a joke about it to make you feel included in this. Because I think if you just start like saying like, oh no, we can't make fun of that, we can't make fun of that, we can't make fun of this, it's like that's not the way people experience life. Like it,
mm-hmm,
and like as comedians we're meant to do that, we're meant to like make fun of stuff and like call out what's going on. We even at Impact Guild last year when they had the conference, I did
mm-hmm.
this Thanksgiving joke where I made the joke, it like is kind of like I get invited to Friendsgiving by my friends after they tell me they don't celebrate Thanksgiving. They're like, we never celebrate. That's an awful holiday. What they did to you. Do you want to come to a Friendsgiving? And like
Mm,
my joke is like, you don't get to just rebrand genocide like that. I
right.
don't I don't call my Jewish friends and go, oh no, that's awful what happened to you. We would never celebrate that. But do you want to come to a friend of cost? And
Yeah,
so
that's terrible.
like but like you like some people would say, oh, you can't make fun of Jewish people. And it's like, I'm not making fun of them at all. I'm
Right,
saying like both of these were genocides. They're both
right,
awful. Like you don't
right,
get to just rebrand it. Like that's where
right,
it's at.
right,
But like doing it in a way that's like, oh, clever and kind of funny and like
right.
funny enough that like one of my friends from Impact Guild, she literally told it at her Thanksgiving with her family. like told
Mm,
that joke to them. Like, and so
right,
like you just like I don't think anything is off limits. I think like
right,
as long as you're not doing it in mean spirit, like everybody everybody wants to laugh and have fun. I mean, some people
right,
don't, but I
right,
think
right,
they should.
right. I
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. Have you ever seen that Key and P was it Key and Peele? I mean Key and
Key
Peele
and Peele,
skit
yeah.
where the guy he's going around doing jokes and he's joking everybody, and then this one guy
Uh-huh.
says "Do me," and the guy's like burned up, and he has like a
Oh
those
yeah,
voice
dude,
recorder
it's
things. He's like
good. Yep.
"Do me," and he's like tries to avoid him,
Yep.
and he's like "Nah, do me," and then
Well,
and
like,
then
dude,
when he
it's oh yeah. Well, like, okay, so like here's another thing that I think. So like I do this joke about, the acronym BIPOC,
yeah, I
where
don't
they
like
just
it,
took
but I know it.
I hate it. They
Me
like
too.
took two races out of it and put us in front, which like cool, I like the preferential treatment, but also like why? And so like
Right.
I do this bit where I'm like, we have a new acronym, Black, Indigenous, all you other motherfuckers. And then I go, and then whatever the predominant race is in the crowd, I'll go, I don't make the rules, but we're better than, if it's the Japanese, the Mexicans, whatever. You
Right.
just like, and like, people would be like, oh, you're making fun of them. It's like, no, I'm calling out the hypocrisy and inclusion by excluding everybody from the acronym, like
Yep.
extracting two and putting them in front and being like, no, they're the better ones. Y'all
Yeah,
all get to stay in
exactly.
POC. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
just, yeah.
I know. That's hilarious. I like it's funny too because I don't like that term, and I'll
Mm-mm.
say like, look, you can use that term if you want to. I understand what you mean when you use that term, and I don't like
Sure.
it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like and that's definitely a funny one. What was I thinking about? Oh, I learned one time like people do want to feel included even when it's like here's the story. I was a kid when I was a kid. There was this one dude. He was a bully, but he was in a wheelchair, right? And so
Oh,
he would
that's
always like
beautiful.
there was a we had at our school we had one deaf bully and one wheelchair bully,
Dude, what
and
did you go to?
it
It
was a
was actually a
special
school for
school,
the
man.
blind.
So so the wheelchair guy, he would roll through the lunch line and be like, "Get the hell out of my way! Get the hell out of my way!" And he would just be telling people
Motherfucker.
move so he could
Yeah.
get up to the front of the line. And I was
Yeah.
like, I saw him do it to other people, but it was never. I was usually like not closer to the front when he did it, so it never like directly impacted me. But I would just like watch him, and I'd be like, "Man, that dude's a bully." And then one day, I was so happy
Yeah.
to be up to the front of the line, and he rolled up to me. He was like, "Get the hell out of the way!" And then I looked at him. I said, "Hey, man." Um, I was like, "Man, you better calm your A down, for I'll take you and roll your A to the back of the line." And
That's
everybody was
funny. I'm
like,
gonna put your brakes on.
yeah, and everybody was like, oh, like shocked that I did it because people just let him do that because
Mm-hmm.
he was in a wheelchair and he would just like talk to people any kind of way. And he was like, "What?" And
No.
then I grabbed his wheelchair and I said, "I'm telling you, man, I'm gonna roll you to the back of the line." And then and then they were like, "I can't believe you did that," because I was always seemed like a super nice dude, but I
Yeah.
couldn't stand that he was being that way. And I was like, I treated him just like everybody else. And the next
As you
time I saw
should.
that dude, next time he was in line, he was like, "Hey man, how's it going?" Totally chill, was loving me. And for the rest of the
Dang.
time I was in school, he was like
You stood up
just
to the
chill. Not
bully,
like I'm saying
man.
anything about the deaf bully, but
Yeah, I mean he wouldn't be able to hear you anyway.
right. But but it was like that showed me like everybody wants to be treated like everybody. They want to be we want to
Yeah.
be included even when it's bringing us more into our humanity, calling us into ourselves.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
comedy does that. It can do that.
It can do that if it's not mean spirited.
Right,
It's that
exactly.
thing where like it feels meaner. Like if you're joking about everybody and then you go to someone and you go, "Oh, I can't make fun of you. I feel bad for you." Like,
Right,
how do you think that makes them feel? Like that,
right.
like it's very easy to like get a hero complex and be like, I'm standing up for them. And it's like, no, dude, like let them stand up for themselves sometimes. And also
Exactly.
like allow them to like be treated as an equal. Like
Yeah,
if everybody's like taking the piss out of everybody and then you like go around and you just don't that person, like you've excluded them. You've done
right.
exactly like the opposite of what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And a
You're not
lot of people,
allowing
I
them to be
think
real.
a lot of people can't see that when they're trying to be good people, so they can't
Hmm.
see the complexities of it, like how what we're
Yeah.
sharing right now. Like I had a person try to defend my honor, and I was like, yo, I'm offended that you're defending me. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I didn't need it, but they
Yup.
just did it trying to be a good person. But somebody
Sure.
said, you know how it is in the South, like how we were joking
Yup.
and we are like, you back in the day, you're either black, white, or Mexican. If you weren't
Dude,
black or
straight
white,
up.
then it's like, oh, whatever, you're Mexican.
Oh yeah, dude. Even in Oklahoma, my dad, like, everybody just was like, "Oh, so you're Mexican?" He'd be like, "No, I'm Chickasaw," and they'd be like, "Okay, what kind of Mexican is that?"
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, I tell people that out here, and they're like, "What?"
Yeah,
And I'm like, "I'm telling you that they're like, when
yeah,
I was growing up, it was like you're black, white, or some kind of Mexican."
or some kind too. Like,
Yeah,
all of South America, everything, all of that. You get out of the U.S., it's like Mexico South, Mexico North. Like, who knows?
yeah, all those different complexities of like, I don't know. It's just it's hilarious. But given all that we're saying about there's no, no off nothing off limits or anything like that, have you
Yeah.
ever had like an encounter with somebody who felt like, yeah, that was off limits and gotten pissed at you? Like, you have like a really bad reaction? What's the worst reaction you had to a bit you did?
Oh man, the worst. So there, I'm gonna leave names out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was asked to do this little like show for a politician, and it was like a fundraiser show, and I was asked as a comedian to do 15 minutes, and I was like, great, that'll
Mhm.
be awesome. Like, would love to do that. Like, support like the values of like this politician, et cetera, et cetera. Let me do that. I get there, and it's like very much like a political rally, and the people who are
Mhm.
there don't want comedy. They don't want
Mm.
it at all. They like are primed because of all the stump speeches being given, are primed to like feel like angry and self-righteous and like we're gonna
Mhm.
change things. And like that's not like my comedy will call stuff out, but it does so in a way where it's meant to like make you feel uncomfortable in a little bit, like
Right.
because I'm talking about race a lot, I'm talking
Mhm.
about all these things, but like if you listen to the whole joke, you'll see where I come around and you can see like my thought and my actual viewpoint on it. But
Right.
I'm gonna lead you down some shit where you're like unsure because that's
Right.
like part of like the uncomfortableness of comedy. So I was doing like I first I like got up and did this joke about here's how I knew it was going to go bad. I got up and I said uh I think it's important before we start this that I let everyone know that I'm Native American, otherwise this is going to be real racist real fast. And then I go and they were like, okay, wait, like hang on, they didn't know whether to laugh or not. And then I go, I'm an enrolled member of the Chickasaw Nation. And then they clapped and I was like, oh no. I was
Oh
like, they
man.
clapped just because I'm native. Like that, I was
Right.
like, this crowd's gonna hate me. Because then my
Yep.
bit right after that is I'm an enrolled member of the Chickasaw Nation, but tonight I'm wearing the traditional regalia of the Fuckboy Nation.
Oh,
And they were like, ugh, gross. And then for 15 minutes, I bombed steady, like the whole set,
man.
just crickets. And I was like, I'm not backing down from this.
Yeah.
I was like trying to talk to people in the crowd too, like, and like, they just, they did not want comedy and they did not want jokes that like made fun of them because I was also calling them out for like they have these like lofty ideals, but they don't necessarily like stick to them or do any actionable items towards that. They just talk
Right.
about them. And
Right.
like I kind of like that's a part of like some of my jokes.
Right.
And they did not like that. But that I would like they thought everything that I did was off limits. Like there were groans.
Oh man.
There were like if there were two people in the audience that I saw that were having a good time because they were not there for politics. They actually came to see comedy because it was at a
Right.
comedy club, which is
Oh
also like
wow.
bizarre. And so eventually I was like, I'm doing the show for these two people. Like I'm just
Right.
all these other people were like they've already said we think you're a racist, we think you're a bad. Like yeah, it was you know one of those things. They didn't want it. They thought everything was
Right.
off limits.
That's
Yeah.
terrible, man.
Uh
I
huh.
bombed I bombed in Hawaii, but I mostly bombed. I probably like 50% bombed. And it was a nice little ego check,
It
you know.
humbles you real quick. You're like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, no,
yeah,
this is hard.
yeah. I know. I told a joke about proper grammar because, like, my mom, it was like a code switching joke, and my mom spoke what you call proper grammar, so she didn't let me speak slang. She didn't let me like any of these things like that. And then we were super Christian,
Oh
so
dang.
when I was
Yeah.
younger, so I just spoke proper grammar. But when I in my
Yeah.
neighborhood, they would say I talk like a white person, right? So I went
Yeah.
into this whole joke about it, and a lot of people were laughing, but this one guy, he uh he basically was like, uh afterwards he wanted to talk to me, and then he was telling me like all the virtues of talking with proper grammar. And he was like, don't let people put you down and make you feel like you can't speak proper grammar. It's better for you than speaking like. And I was like, oh Jesus,
You're
dude.
like what? Like what? Like what? What are you going to finish that sentence, please? Yeah.
Exactly. I was like, oh, good Lord. But I was like, oh, thanks, sir, or whatever. I got to get out of here. But
Yeah.
so what would you say is the best response you ever had to a joke or a bit that you did, or somebody's best reaction to it?
So I've like 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 you do comedy for a long while, and like a lot of it's like you know about you, like about stuff, like that sort of thing. It's like and like you're doing more like jokes to like set up punchline, and then like you finally transition into like telling stories that like
Mm,
are full of jokes and stuff. And like I've sort of like I've hit that point where I'm like now I'm doing like more story bits, and like
hmm.
I like it clicked for me like the stories that I'm telling a lot of my friends and the way that I tell them, if I write them the way that I do stand up, like those will be where like that special sauce is. Like that's where my voice
Hmm.
is because that's like that's true, and those are like those experiences are universal. So I think the best response I've had so far was to the like a relatively new bit, but it's been a story that like I've been telling for like the past like 8 years about
Mm.
I told y'all a little bit at the table at Impact Guild about how a booby trap me and my cousin and my brother set had two of my other cousins. One of them killed the other one over it, and
Mm.
like so like that story, like it like it's like like it's like 8 to 10 minute bit, and like people are responding well. Like even in like shitty bar shows where like you
Hmm.
go in and like people don't like know if they're meant like they're like why'd you turn off the TVs? Like we were watching football. Oh, now you're doing comedy. We don't like this. Like even in
Right, right.
those settings, like it's drawing people in, and like people are leaning in and laughing at the right times, and like that's like and that one like it's literally just it's like something that happened as a kid.
Right, right.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think I think comedy is evolving now. One of the upsides of like canceling people and all this other stuff like that is that I think it's
Yeah.
inviting folks to tell more stories that have more narrative to it, that
Yeah.
people can kind of locate themselves in the story, but it also embraces like that comic element, and it's also like a full bodied, full emotional experience. So that the people like when
Yeah.
I did this bit about my mom having dementia, like in the last time I told it, this woman, my mom was yelling at this woman in the
Uh-huh.
facility that she was in and
Yeah.
calling the lady, telling her she looked stupid and all this other stuff, right? And
Uh-huh.
then like a few minutes later, my mom was comforting this person, and it was the same person. My mom was like, my
That's
mom
funny.
had insulted the lady, made her cry, and then forgot, and then was comforting her.
And was like, oh, who hurt you, honey?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was my
Yeah.
mom. And I was on the phone
It's
with her,
like
like, Mom,
you.
it's you. And it's like, and it was like people were laughing, but I opened it with saying, kind of telling a little bit about, I used to wish that I could get some of my mom's old self back. And then I saw
Yeah.
her being like that to that lady. So I'm like, do I want her back?
Dude,
Her old self
what's
back?
you could also be like dementia's made my mom like start gaslighting people.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep. Which, well, she was doing it before dementia. Now she just does it faster.
Yeah. Yeah. Now she has an excuse that's like, oh, okay, she got dementia. She don't know no better.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if my mom's like just messing with me, and then one day she's gonna be like, "I don't have dementia,
Too much
boy. I was just playing
surprise.
with you." And I'm like,
You idiot. Yeah.
Like all these years, why would you do this to me? You know?
Oh, you cried, bitch.
Yep. Would be terrible. Oh my goodness. Uh, so now one of the questions we like to ask folks is like,
Yeah.
what's so funny about? And then we try to pick something that probably shouldn't be funny, and then
Okay.
ask like, what's so funny about it? Now I'm almost nervous to say something. Now I'm trying to be. Now I'm like, okay, hold on. I don't want to say
Let's not
anything
go
like
there. Yeah.
too. Yeah. Um, what's so funny about infidelity
What's
in
so
a
funny about
relationship?
infidelity?
Yeah.
Um, what could be funny about it, when I start thinking about it is like what if the other like the person that you're like cheating with is like real ugly? That's like
That's
silly.
the first thing I.
Um, yeah, just like there can be funniness in like how you get caught doing it too.
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah. I'm trying to think of like a reverse. There could also it's also funny if like now I'm just trying to think of like how I'd write a sketch about it.
Right.
Um,
Right.
if like they think you're cheating, but really like you're sending all these like texts that are like sort of flirty, but it's like you're like, I don't know, talking about a bag of Doritos, like something
Right. Right.
stupid.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
you can make it like you can make that funny. What do you think about? What do you think's funny about it?
Well, the first thing I thought about was if I cheated with not me personally, but like if somebody cheated with somebody that person thought like say they thought themselves would be a 10 and then the other person they thought it was like a 2 or something, and then they would just be
Yeah.
like, what? Or they caught them like cheating on them with like a blow up doll or something like that, or
Yeah.
AI robot, like with AI, the like AI stuff, like if they found out they
Yeah.
had like a relationship with an AI bot instead of them, but they
Uh-huh.
knew that they were like that sort of thing. I started thinking about like something that the person would be like, I can't, because some people they'll if you cheat, I've met people where like if you cheat with somebody they think is better than them, they're like, oh, I can see why you did that. Like,
Oh no,
wow,
good
okay,
job. Yeah.
so you
Oh
cheated
wow.
on me with Miss America. Okay, well,
Hey
awesome.
man, you know what? Good job. Yeah.
Yeah.
They like
So
high five you.
yeah. Like the kind of like the way our brains work when we like put everything in like categories and stuff like that. And we're like, well, hey, and they might even go like, well, if I got with somebody who can date that somebody like that, then I must be pretty high up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I got a guy who can, or a woman or whatever the case may be.
Yep.
Yeah, because humans are just goofball.
Uh-huh. Or like it's funny like if like uh no, I don't know. I lost my train of thought. It
Oh,
just went
that's right.
away.
Yeah.
No, like obviously infidelity is bad, but
Right.
like you know, trying to think of like I'm trying to write a joke right now in my head and it's just not like coming
Not,
to
it's
me.
not coming. Hey, but this is the process, man.
Yeah. Let me see. I wrote uh I got some like stuff that I was trying to write jokes about that's like dark that like we could be like what's so funny about that?
Yeah.
Oh, what's so funny about prison? Like
Oh
that's like
yeah.
and like what's funny about that to me, I've actually written a lot of jokes about it is like
Mhm.
growing up so much of my family like went to prison that I thought it was like a rite of passage and just something that you have to do in life.
Right.
So I thought
Right.
I would like always wanted to go to college, but I thought like I would go through high school, I graduate high school, I would do a couple years in prison, and then I would like go to college after I got out of prison. Because
Yeah.
I thought like you just like I thought like because so many people in my family were going to prison, I thought you just go to prison. Like that's part of like it's like mandatory service. Like you just got to go to prison for a little while, and then like you come and do what you want to do.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I had a friend, we were talking and he was like, we were sitting down and he said, he's like, yo, you know what, man? I wish that I could just have a regular life like everybody else. And I was like, oh yeah. And he said, I wish all 6 of my kids had the same mama. And then I was just like, yeah. And then I said, oh yeah. And then we was talking and stuff. And then he said, but God's working on me. And he said, and this is what's gonna happen. He was like, I'm gonna sell drugs for a couple more years. Then I'm gonna go to
Oh,
jail, and then when I get out of jail, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna be a minister. And I was like, why you gotta put the jail part in there?
yeah. Why you gotta do that?
Yeah,
You know what? He needs a good like. He needs to be able to testify right. He needs like a
right.
good story.
A
Otherwise, like
good
people are like,
story.
why are you? Yeah, you're not
Man,
a
whatever.
real
You didn't even go
preacher.
to jail. Shut up.
Yeah, yeah.
You skipped the line. And I used to think that same thing. I mean, I didn't think I was gonna go. I thought
Yeah.
I would rather be dead than go. Because when I was younger, my options were like, okay, chances are people are telling me this narrative that I'm gonna be dead or in prison by the time I'm 18 is like that's the likelihood, in
Oh
in
dang.
the society. And so I was like, well, I
Yeah.
don't want to go to jail because I'll probably end up being somebody's girlfriend I wasn't intentionally wanting to do. So I was like, all right, I'm probably just gonna die then. That's the better
Yeah.
option.
Hey man, at 18, I'll be out. I'll see y'all.
Yep. And then when I was still alive, when I was 18, I said, oh, what? They didn't catch me. And I was like, let me go join the military. I joined the military. And then when I went to the military, I kept thinking like, oh yeah, any day now they're gonna send me somewhere and I'm gonna get killed and the story will be written away. And then I started thinking like, hold on, man, why did I incorporate this in my story so much that I was
Yeah.
anticipating it? I even had like my last words and everything.
Oh
And then I was
dang,
like,
you
yeah,
wrote it out.
yeah, well, in my head, I would repeat it to myself, like, and when I'm dying, I'm gonna be like, no matter what my wife thought, because I got married when I was young, I loved her and I never cheated.
Oh, I'm dead.
Tell her, tell her I never cheated. And I was like, oh. Then I was like, this
Dang.
is stupid, man. Let me go to college.
Dude, like my so one of my uncles, he was in and out of prison and like when he would get like prison tattoos while he's in, but they wouldn't like get finished because he'd be out before he could like afford to get it all the way done. And so
Oh,
like
nice.
for the longest time he had on his chest and stomach like half the top half of the Virgin Mary. And so like when he would like pass out on drugs in the front room, we would like come in with like magic marker and like draw the bottom half. So like sometimes it'd be like a horse, sometimes it'd be like a mermaid, and then he'd wake up and be like, "What the fuck you kids do, man?"
So it's in their sad play. Sometimes when you're growing up and you have that kind of stuff, if you survive it, it's definitely worth the stories.
Oh, 100, dude. Yeah, like again, if people who don't have that, they'd look at that and be like, "Why are you laughing about that? That man was like dealing with like drug addiction and recidivism and poverty and all that." And it's like,
Right.
yeah, we know, but like
Yeah.
it's still funny that he like couldn't get the tattoo finished and like
Yeah.
that we as kids were drawing it. That's silly. Like
Yeah.
in the face of all this tragedy that on the outside be like, oh, how terrible. Like the people inside are still having to live. Like we're still
Yeah.
having to find ways to
Exactly.
cope with that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that that's part of like humanizing like every place that you find a human being, there is a way of humanizing it. And there's also a way of having a whole life in it, even if it's a container that's like not the ideal container, there's still some way
Yeah.
of appreciating different dimensions of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, man. That's something, man. You need to make a film about that, like that, put that a scene in a film
Uh-huh.
of like filling in the tattoo. That would be
Oh,
hilarious.
dude. So I mean, like I'm getting close to that. I just did this short with Disney and AFI, and like it's called Ricky Killed a Guy, and it's about like this dude who gets out of prison after serving 20 years and like tries to readjust into society. And like
Mm,
it's full of those sort of like real like tragic moments, but the people in it are like making fun of it and like trying to live their life. So like that, I mean, that specific thing won't be in it, but a lot of those like experiences of like growing up
yeah.
around that are definitely in it.
For some reason, there was this dude. He in my old neighborhood. He was passed out drunk. I was like, I don't know, man. I was always trying to be a good Samaritan.
Yeah,
He was passed out drunk. And I went up to him and I was like, sir, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like checking on him, right? Then he just
yeah.
hopped up and he was like, what'd you do? What'd you touch me? And I don't know what he thought I was doing to him, but he started chasing me. So
Oh
then I was
no.
running down the street and I'm like, ah, and I'm trying to get away from him. And these three old heads were sitting there. Old heads for people who don't know, it's like three old dudes. The old black dudes were sitting there.
Yep.
And they were watching this dude chase me, and they were laughing. They were laughing. And they were like, "He's gonna get him! He's gonna get him!" And I was like, "Help me!"
And they're like,
And they
nah,
just,
man, you got it.
they were just laughing. And the dude caught me, and he grabbed me, and he picked me up off the ground, and literally lifted me over his head, and was
Oh
like, and then
shit.
passed out again, and then collapsed, and then I fell on top of him.
And then he wakes up, why are you on top of me?
Yeah. Then I was like, "Oh shit!" Then I done ran back to the house, and I was like, "Y'all be ashamed of yourselves." But it's like now because I survived it, it's hilarious.
Oh, dude, yeah. It's so like, yeah, like in the moment, like that could have been like it's obviously scary, but like it's hilarious to talk about now.
Right. And that's like I think like that comedy formula of tragedy plus time is like
Yeah,
is
it's
kind of
real.
like a really universal formula for you know a part of our human resilience, our capacity to be resilient. And I think
Yeah,
like the importance of doing things like this and like liberation comedy or asking what's so funny about things that we don't normally laugh at is it
yeah,
is a testament that even in the harshest times, we will find a way to make ourselves okay over time.
yeah,
And if we can do
exactly.
that now, then maybe we can back off on some of the intensity, some of the harm that we do. Because a lot of
Yeah,
times we do harm because we're afraid we won't be okay. But if
that's
we can like
accurate.
embed that, so yeah, man, that's awesome. Well, it's been awesome talking to you, and
Yeah.
I love laughing, and I love being able to connect with you over this. So, like, if people want to learn more about what you're doing, what would be a good way to contact you, or website, or something like that you'd want people to visit?
Oh man, they can just on Instagram, at Blake Pickens. Like that's just hit me up on there, follow me there. Like that's where I post a lot of stuff. That's kind of where I'm the most active. And like
Awesome.
yeah, that would be where to find me.
Awesome. Well, if I make my way out to Oklahoma, I'll well, you're not even in Oklahoma. What am I
Oh, I'm
talking
in
about?
LA now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll be back for like
If I make
Christmas,
my
but
way
like
to
otherwise
Oklahoma, I'll take pictures of it and say, "Look what you're missing,"
and just text it to me. Yeah.
and then text it to you. But
Wait,
thanks for
did you want
oh,
to did we talk about Thanksgiving at all, or did we kind of just like gloss over it? I know this is the
we kind
Thanksgiving
of glossed
episode.
over it. But if you want to hit up here's some bonus content. All right, Thanksgiving, we're back.
No, I just because I was like, hang on, we had a good conversation, but like we didn't like we just said pilgrims, haha, and then kept moving on, which is kind of what the so okay. My deal with Thanksgiving specifically is like growing up in Oklahoma, it was a weird time because Oklahoma was like the end of the Trail of Tears. That's how my
Right.
family ended up there. The like that's like there's so many natives in that place. But
Hmm.
the state's history is very anti-native because once they found oil and everything there, they started pushing the Indians, like pushing us like further south. Like
Right.
the the like racism is embedded into the state, right? Like there's
Right.
still a holiday called the Oklahoma Land Run of 1889 where
Mm.
we would literally in school, it was like a holiday you'd celebrate. People would make t-shirts and they would like give you like a stake and you could go out on the playground and stake your claim on the playground. And it's literally when they took the land from the native people and then gave it all to white settlers. And then like that's a holiday and they celebrate it. To this day, it's still celebrated. In addition to
Jesus.
that, the University of Oklahoma, the Sooner, like that mascot, the Sooners are the people who during the land run before they shot the gun and went out and like on the boomers, the
Hmm.
Sooners are the people who cheated and stole the land first. Like they went out before the gun and stole all this land and like that's how Oklahoma City was founded. Like a number like and so all of that like anti native is like built into it. So then like Thanksgiving in Oklahoma is like an extra layer of it where like it's literally you have all this built in, you have the end of the Trail of Tears there, you have all of this, and they're like, weren't the pilgrims so nice? Weren't they just
Yeah.
good people? Didn't they just like did so much good stuff? Like, oh, it's all love. And it's like, I don't know
Yeah.
about that, man. I don't know if it is. So it was like growing up, it was weird for me because like my family's very mixed, but like at the same time, like we want to we like everybody gets that day off from work who doesn't work retail and like like
Right.
it like you get to like go and be with family but you feel weird at the same time because you're like are we like can't we do this like the day before or something like like just take that power away from the day because like a holiday where you give thanks and be with family is a beautiful thing. It's like you don't need
Right.
the trappings of like pilgrims and Indians. Like it's weird to like make a hand turkey when like the what happened is like a genocide. And you're like,
Right.
but like it's like look at this turkey.
Yeah. Nah, I hear you, man. And it's the complexity too, like of the history rewrites and the kind of like trying to make things more palatable is
Yeah.
besides robbing other people of their experiences and what has informed how they show up in the world. It's like it I don't know. I like some people say I overthink it. Because I used to always
Yeah.
say, like, once I've discovered the things, I'd be like, hey, but this is what's really going down. Like,
Yeah.
we should reimagine this. But it's like it's so complicated because the people, when you tell them, it's feel like you're taking something away from them by asking
Yeah.
to be included and
Exactly.
let your story be included. And I had a freaking experience, man, when I was in third grade. uh
Uh-huh.
my we had like a little play, and my teacher wanted me to be Robert E. Lee.
No, she didn't.
Yeah. And I said what? And
So
she
hang
said,
on
can
a
you be
second.
you're gonna be Robert E. Lee? And I said,
Yeah.
I don't think I should be Robert E. Lee. And she was like, why not? And I was like, because I'm black. And then
Yeah.
she was like, and then she said, well, it's not about race, it's about great Virginians, because we lived in Virginia. And she was like, it's
No,
about
it's
great
about
Virginia.
great Virginians.
Yeah. And she was like, and she said he didn't really care, he didn't really support slavery, he just didn't want to fight against his brothers in Virginia, and so
Oh, come
he
on.
fought for Virginia. So this is like just doing a play for great Virginians. And then I was like, I still felt like terrible, but I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And then
I'm in
I
third
made this,
grade. How do I do this? Yeah.
yeah, and I made a little hand puppet of Robert E. Lee, and I'm like, hi, I'm Robert E. Lee, and
I'm a
I'm a
great
great
Virginian.
Virginian.
I love black people.
Yeah,
They're my
I was like,
favorite people.
I'm not fighting for slavery. I'm just fighting for my home. I'm like, this is not right. And then I told my uncle, he was like, oh my God, I had to do the same thing. And I was like, nah, that's terrible. But
Uh-huh.
in those people's mind, they think they're doing equality.
hmm They, dude, I know. They're like, no, no, no. We're recasting Robert E. Lee as black. Yeah, that's a,
Yeah,
like, what do you mean? We're doing the right thing.
yeah. I mean, actually, that would be kind of fun.
It kind of would be. Yeah. What's so funny about Robert E. Lee? If
Yep,
he's cast black,
yep, yep.
it's like the
Oh my
Chappelle
goodness.
sketch where like he's like the black blind Ku Klux Klan guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh Jesus, man. But I'm glad we were able to touch on that. That's bonus
Yes.
content. I'll add it as bonus content, and it's good talking to you. And I hope that we get to pull off another a liberation comedy event out here in Colorado.
Yeah.
Would be
Dude, I'd love
awesome.
that. Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be
that'd be
amazing.
awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe. The What's So Funny About podcast was brought to you by the Liberation Comedy Project, which is being incubated by Mediators Foundation, mediatorsfoundation.org, and managed by Unify, younify.org. Stay tuned for future episodes and check out past episodes as we work to bring more light, laughter, and love to this world through the Liberation Comedy Project. Bye for now.